What is up, ladies and gents? This is Mercedes from Awesome News Network, and I'm here today to give a quick recap slash review of the much anticipated Game of Thrones Season 6 premiere titled The Red Woman. Alright, so this is a recap review, so there will obviously be some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the episode, turn away now and come back later. Alright, here we go. Alright, so we start this episode up in Castle Black, where Jon Snow is officially dead, though I refuse to believe he'll stay that way. Davos, Ghost, and a couple of other crows have decided to guard Jon's body from Sansa Theon, who has taken over the Night's Watch, while they wait for Melisandre to stop sulking in her room because her visions haven't been coming true recently, and I guess it gets kind of hard when you take a hit to your religion. And while they are doing that, Edison, one of Jon's only living friends, is off to get the wildlings' help to reclaim Castle Black. And later in the episode, Alistair Thorne talks to Davos through the door of their room, and he's like, I will give all the Night's Watchmen inside the room amnesty, and I will also let you go with the horse and Melisandre if you leave by midnight. Davos, of course, is a smart behind. He's like, yeah, can I get some mutton too? Because I'll never make it south if I don't have some food. And Thorne's like, sure, I'll give you food. And so Thorne leaves, and Davos talks to the rest of them. He's like, yeah, it's my personal opinion that he's definitely going to kill us the second we open that door, and everyone else agrees. So yeah, now their game plan is waiting for either Melisandre to step in or Edison to come back with the wildlings. And then we jump down to Winterfell, where Ramsay is actually mourning the death of Miranda. It's kind of a cute scene if you like cute psychopaths, where he tells a story about how when they were both younger, she was the only person who wasn't afraid of him because he couldn't do anything to her that the hounds wouldn't do. And that made them love each other. And then we go down and go to Roose, who confronts Ramsay about Sansa and Theon running away and essentially threatens Ramsay with death if he can't get them back, because Roose truly believes that without the North's assistance, he cannot take out the Lannister army, and he cannot have that assistance without Sansa carrying a Boltoneer. Yep, Ramsay's going to be a little desperate this season to get Sansa back because he likes being a true Bolton and torturing those he deems, I don't know, he's. And then we cut to Sansa and Theon failing at running away from Ramsay's trackers. They go through the effort of crossing a frozen river in the middle of winter and then stop to rest under a tree stump. Like, if you're cold, keep moving. Also, they're still chasing you, so you probably don't want to rest for too long. But obviously that didn't work out, and Ramsay's guys catch up to them, and right before they're about to get rounded up to go back to Winterfell, Brienne of Tarth decides to actually do her job and save the day along with Podrick. They end up killing Ramsay's men, with Theon helping kill the last guy who was about to stab Podrick in the face, and Brienne was finally able to finish her oath to Catelyn about, getting her daughters and protecting one of her daughters, because no one knows where Arya is anymore. And she swears fealty to Sansa. And that scene was actually kind of telling, because last season we have been like, oh, Sansa's finally learning how to play the game. But when Brienne swore her fealty to her, she needed Podrick's help to finish the oath, because she still has a lot to learn when it comes to, I don't know, do we want to say. Alright, so we finally get out of the cold and head down to King's Landing, where Cersei is waiting for Jaime and Marcella to come back. She gets wind that Doran ships are coming into the bay, so she runs down to the docks all excited. And when she gets there, she sees Jaime standing They're all sad looking with his not blonde hair and a burial cloth over something, and she automatically knows, oh, something's wrong. Of course, we know that Ilaria Sand had poisoned Marcella before she went home. So we go through a weird thing between her and Jamie where she talks about how she always, whenever someone close to her dies, she imagines like their decomposing process. Like, oh, I wonder if they started bloating, or if I wonder if their lips are moving, or if their skin have turned black. She's a tormented person. And Jamie essentially, to make her feel better, goes into the whole like, man, f the world. It's just you and me now. We're gonna rule together. We're gonna do great. We're gonna completely ignore the fact that we still have one child that's not dead. Uh, and so yeah, they're two people against the world now. Um, and speaking of Tommen, let's talk about his wife Marjorie, who is still in prison for lying to protect her brother. She is currently in a cell having the scripture read to her by Septa Unella, who I think we saw last season. She's the big lady who is quick to slap people in the face. Margie, of course, cuts her off because no one wants to listen to that all the time, to demand to talk to her brother, and get the whole sinners don't make demands, sinners make confessions. And when Marjorie refuses, Septa tries to strike her. High Sparrow pops up to stop her and decides to sit down and talk to Marjorie. And they have like a story. He's like, you have to confess. And he's like, I have nothing to confess. And it's like, so do you think you're clean? And she's like, no one's clean. Because that's true, no one is. He's like, oh, okay, so you've taken your first steps. You just have a couple of miles left to go. Which I'm like, thanks, guy. Way of saying that I'm never going to get out of here. Because like I could imagine, like even if she does confess to lying for her brother, like what is the punishment for that? Like Cersei, yeah, she had sex with her cousin while she was married, and then she had to do the walk of shame. So I can only imagine what strange thing they're gonna have Margie do if she ever does confess to lying for her brother. And then we move on to Doran, where Ilaria Sand and Doran Martell are reminiscing about Oberyn and how good of a man and adventurer and lover he was, and how Doran views himself to be the great leader. And they're having a relatively nice evening together, and the moment is interrupted when Doran receives a message about Marcella's death, which sparks an event that I guess they I guess for time restraints, that's how they had to do it. But it was kind of abrupt. You have Tyann, who's with Ilaria, just stabbed Doran's guard, like the big tough guy who single-handedly saved him last season, just stabbing him back and he goes down. And then Ilaria stabs Doran and gives this whole speech of how he's been in his castle all this time and he's lost sight of his people, and his people hate him for not avenging his sister or his brother against the Lannisters. And so that explains why all the guards in the garden are just letting them kill this guy that they're sworn to protect. Uh, and then we cut back to King's Landing, where Obera and Nymeria uh, corner Trystane while he's uh, painting Marcella's burial stones. And they're like, who do you want to fight? He's like, I'll fight Nymeria because, she's smaller. And Obera's like, yep, that was a smart decision. So he draws his sword and turns towards Nymeria. And Obera just stabs him in the back of the head with a spear. It's like, oh, you're an idiot. To which Nymeria calls Obera a bee because, she stole her kill, which I think that's like the third time that's happened. They're an interesting family. But yeah, so now Dorne, I guess, is technically run by the Sand Snakes, which is probably not the best thing because, you probably want your ruler to be good at more than just poison. And now we are finally crossing the narrow sea, getting out of Westeros. I have been following the episode structure up to this point, but I'm going to talk about Arya's segment of the episode next because it's kind of small, but it's still like a answer to the finale type thing. So we have to talk about everyone who's in the finale, and so we go to Arya, who was blind in Bravos, and shocker, she is still blind in Bravos. She's apparently been kicked out of the faceless man's temple thing, and is a beggar on the street, and she just sits there listening to people talk as they pass by, and some people stop to give her coins. And then Waif, who I have just been calling the girl who needs Arya to leave Arya alone, pops up and talks to her. She's like, "Oh, so do you listen? Does anyone stop to talk to you?" Like, "No, because I'm blind. Whatever, get out of my face." So she's carrying two bow staffs and she throws one at Arya, and like as Arya finally gets it in her hand, she just starts wailing on her, just beats her up. Good old fashioned bullying. Uh, and she after she's done, she's like, "All right, I'll be back tomorrow." So I'm like, "Oh, okay, I guess Arya's training's still on, and as punishment for not listening to, oh, I forget the faceless man's name, she gets the person who is not supposed to have a personality but can still somehow pull off being a bitch." So yeah, poor Arya, but maybe this will be good for her to learn how to fight blind. Makes you a much better fighter. Now back to the actual storyline. We go to Marine, where Tyrion and Varys are walking down the streets, just seeing how Marine is in shambles after Denarius flies away on Dragon. Of course, we know that she was kidnapped, but as far as the Marinians think, she abandoned them, and that has left a huge power vacuum in Marine, where the Sons of Harpies are still causing trouble from the shadows, and this new group of newly freed slaves are gathering together and bringing up arms to fight against them because, as far as they're concerned, Dany has abandoned them. So yeah, this is actually kind of a funny scene. While they're walking down the street, they see a beggar. Well, they see a peasant woman with her baby, and Tyrion's Valyrian is terrible, so he's like, "Here's a coin, you know, to eat baby." And the woman's like, "No, no, go away." And Varys is like, "You have to forgive him. His Valyrian is terrible. He's not trying to eat your baby. He just wants to give you this coin so you can feed him." And she's like, "Oh, okay, cool." That moment's interrupted when they start hearing yelling, and people are running away from the docks, and they go to check it out to discover that someone has set Daenerys's boats on fire. And like a classic writers talking to the audience through a character, Tyrion goes, "Well, we won't be sailing to Westeros anytime soon." To be like, "Ha, yeah, you know how we could literally get Daenerys over to Westeros to get the story finished? We're not going to do that. You're not going to be seeing dragons fighting Lannisters or White Walkers anytime soon." And speaking of Daenerys' disappearance, Dario, her current boy toy, and Jorah, who most people know as Captain Friendzone, has been following a trail of burnt and eaten bodies that Drogon's been left behind in an attempt to track Daenerys down. While they're traveling, they are, having friendly banter. Dario's like, "It must suck to love someone so much who doesn't really care about you," and Jorah's like, "Yeah, whatever. I'm too old for this petty stuff." And Dario, keeps his end of the conversation going. Was like, "Oh, I hope that when I'm old, I can be as bitter as you, because she won't ever be with me either." And then they stumble across where the Dothraki circle around Daenerys in the last episode, and they discover the ring she left behind for them. So they're like, "Oh, well, we know she's with Dothraki now." So they're probably going to head that way in hopes of finding her so they can bring her back to Marine. And finally, on to the last character that we have to check in on. From the finale, it's Denarius. She is indeed with the Dothraki. They don't know who she is because she hasn't talked to them. They just think she's an outsider that stumbled way too far out of a safe place. Um, and they are bringing them to their call. She gets there, and Khal Moro is like, oh, she's pretty. His wives were like, you know, blonde hair, blue eyed people are witches. You should cut off their head. And he has this cute little thing about how even if he was blind, his wives would tell him to cut off their head so he would know she was beautiful. And he's glad that she's not blind because she is beautiful. And he's like, I'm going to lay with you tonight. And that's when she decides to reveal that she actually speaks Dothraki. And then she gives her long introduction where I have realized that she actually has way more titles than Albus Dumbledore could ever hope for, and she needs to chill on that fact. But yeah, so she tells him that she was Khal Drogo's wife and all that jazz, and she has like this I'm better than you air about her, and it's kind of cool because you're like, yes, girl, you do that, you be strong and powerful and not be afraid of all these gigantic men who could easily kill you. And they're like, oh, cool, you're cute. Yeah, no one can touch you because we can't touch a dead Carl's wife. And so she's like, okay, cool. So if you would give me an escort back to Marine, I'll give you some horses when I get there, and we can go our merry way. And they're like, oh no, that's not how this works. There's only one place for widows of Khals, and that is Vice Dothrak, where they send all the widows to I guess die. And she's like, what? It's like, no, I don't want to go there. So yeah, that should be fun to figure out what that's all about. And now the big reveal, the whole point of this episode, why it's called The Red Woman. We cut to Melisandre in her room again, still sulking about her prophecies. Um, and she decides, like, I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, she's taking off her clothes because that's all she does. Uh, and except this time, when she takes off her clothes, she also takes off her necklace, which reveals the fact that she has been using an illusion to hide her actual age, and she just looks like an old hag. Like if you saw the witch, that's kind of what her body looked like, and kind of nasty. I don't want to be mean to old people, but yeah, it was not great to look at. Um, and that was the big thing. Like, I mean, we knew she was hundreds of years old. I guess it's kind of like if you look back on previous seasons, you look at like her sex scene with Stannis, that makes that way weirder. And then you go, oh, John, you dodged a bullet on that one by refusing her company that one night. But yeah, that's kind of it for the episode. Now on to my actual feelings about it. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this episode. Not a lot of exciting stuff happened, but a lot of stuff still happened. It was good to check in with everyone because in shows like this where there's so many characters in so many different places with so much going on, it's good to just stop and just collect yourself and check in with everyone, see where they are. Uh, I will admit I was hoping there would be more progress on the bringing Jon Snow back to life front. At least like maybe having Melisandre have more of a, you know what, guys, I got this moment, or uh, that other red woman that we saw in one of the trailers possibly popping up, just like a silhouette or something. Just some sort of hint that he'll be back, because he will be back. I don't care what anyone says. Um, but yeah, and I guess it's just waiting for the next episode. We finally get to check in with what Bran's been up to, other than, growing 2 feet off camera. And there's also, looking into what's going to happen with the Night Watch now. They don't really have a Lord Commander anymore, and will the Wildlings come back to help fight? And if they do outnumber the Night's Watch. Will they be able to take Castle Black? And if that happens, What then? Are they just going to chill there waiting for the White Walkers to show up? What's going to happen in Doran now that they don't have a real leader? Laria might think she can do the job, but I don't. She can't just keep poisoning everyone she doesn't agree with. And will she? Is everyone on her side with killing Doran, or are there people outside of the capital who are not going to like her killing him, trying to usurp the throne? Uh, and then, of course, looking at Marine, is Tyrion going to be able to step into Daenerys' shoes to calm the people down and get them back in working order before everyone dies? And Daenerys, what's she going to do in a place full of powerless widows? Or is Dragon going to pop up again? Oh, we did see in the preview that it looks like the whole Tyrion going to look for talk to the dragons is going to come up. So cool. I mean, hints that he might be the third rider in the prophecy. So what did you guys think? Was this a good premiere? Did it warrant the hype that it got? Could have used a little bit more excitement. What do you guys think's coming up next? How long do you think Arya is going to be blind? How long do you think Sansa's going to be wandering the north with her group before Littlefinger finds her? And tell me, what do you guys think about Jon Snow? Is he going to come back? And if he does, how long? Share your thoughts and start a conversation in the comment section below. And don't forget to click that like and subscribe button. Also, feel free to check out Awesome News Network's Facebook page, where you will find news on the latest games, TV, movies, anime, and comics. Until next time.